Geopolitical Report for June 26, 2026, 6:27 Universal Time Coordinated, generated by AI Agent, acting as Senior Geopolitical Analyst. Date of preparation, June 26, 2026. June 25, 2026, U.S. Treasury waives select Venezuela sanctions to facilitate earthquake disaster relief. Following a major doublet earthquake event in Venezuela, the U.S. Treasury Department announced a temporary waiver on certain economic sanctions until October 23, 2026. The measure permits financial transactions specifically related to humanitarian aid, emergency response, and search and rescue support that were previously prohibited. Market impact, neutral. June 25, 2026, U.S. administration aims to manage competition with China to avoid decoupling. Following a recent summit between President Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping, U.S. diplomatic assessments highlighted a shift toward constructive strategic stability. The administration is focusing on managed trade competition, seeking to mitigate the severe economic disruptions associated with a sudden decoupling. Market impact, bullish. June 24, 2026, U.S. Senate rejects second war powers resolution regarding Iran. Following intense lobbying and warnings from President Donald Trump regarding the leverage of negotiations with Iran's proxies, the U.S. Senate rejected an Iran-focused war powers resolution in a 47-50-1 vote. Some Republican senators who supported a similar resolution the previous day changed their positions to allow the administration more diplomatic flexibility. Market impact, neutral. June 24, 2026, U.S. intelligence assesses Ukrainian long-range strikes on Russian oil facilities as highly effective. U.S. officials indicated that Ukraine's deep strikes on Russian oil refineries are successfully eroding Moscow's domestic fuel stability. The assessment suggests these operations force Russia to reallocate defense assets away from frontline operations, increasing the financial burden of the conflict for the Kremlin. Market impact, neutral. June 24, 2026, U.S. President Donald Trump signs executive order to secure quantum technology supply chains. President Donald Trump issued an executive order directing federal agencies to strengthen domestic supply chains and enhance counterintelligence protections for quantum computing. The order frames foreign adversaries, particularly China, as direct threats to U.S. leadership and national security in advanced technological sectors. Market impact, neutral. June 23, 2026, U.S. Senate passes War Powers Resolution to end hostilities with Iran. In a 50-48 vote, the U.S. Senate passed a concurrent, non-binding resolution directing the removal of U.S. armed forces from hostilities with Iran. The vote saw significant bipartisan support from 4 Republicans alongside almost all Democrats, reflecting deep legislative concern over direct military escalation in the Middle East. Market impact, neutral. June 22, 2026, U.S. and Iran establish 60-day roadmap to peace during Swiss negotiations. Negotiations between U.S. and Iranian officials in Switzerland yielded a transitional roadmap aimed at reaching a final peace deal within 60 days. The framework sets up committees for monitoring nuclear activity and scaling back sanctions, while outlining terms to de-escalate military tensions in Lebanon. Market impact, bullish. June 21, 2026, technical U.S.-Iran peace talks mediated by Pakistan and Qatar begin in Switzerland. High-level technical peace talks between the United States and Iran officially commenced in Switzerland, with facilitation provided by Qatar and Pakistan. Vice President J.D. Vance represented the American delegation, underscoring the administration's willingness to explore diplomatic channels to resolve the Middle East conflict. Market impact, neutral. June 21, 2026, President Trump rejects Iranian tolls on shipping in Strait of Hormuz. President Donald Trump stated that the U.S. would not permit any tolls or fees on maritime transit through the Strait of Hormuz during a negotiated 60-day ceasefire. However, Trump warned that the U.S. might implement its own tariff or fee system if a comprehensive final treaty is not secured by the end of the ceasefire period. Market impact, neutral. June 25, 2026, Taiwan Ministry of National Defense tracks 14 PLA aircraft crossing Taiwan Strait median line. The Taiwanese Ministry of National Defense reported that 14 Chinese military aircraft and several naval vessels crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait. This activity continues a pattern of gray zone incursions designed to erode Taiwan's territorial sovereignty and test the defensive response times of its military forces. Market impact, neutral. June 24, 2026, Premier Li Qiang advocates for open trade at World Economic Forum in Dalian. Speaking at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting of the New Champions, Chinese Premier Li Qiang urged global nations to maintain open trade and international cooperation. Li emphasized that despite ongoing geopolitical rivalries and tech wars, China remains committed to supporting global supply chain stability. Market impact, bullish. June 24, 2026, Beijing publishes new global governance white paper detailing systemic ambitions. Beijing published a 45-page white paper detailing its vision for a more just and equitable global governance system. Analysts indicate that the document signals China's transition from a participant in the current rules-based order to an active architect of an alternative, multipolar international structure. Market impact, neutral. June 23, 2026, U.S. President signs executive order restricting Chinese quantum technology supply chains. President Donald Trump issued an executive order directing federal agencies to secure domestic supply chains and bolster counterintelligence defenses in quantum computing. The directive frames competing nations, particularly China, as major security threats to U.S. leadership in advanced technologies. Market impact, neutral. June 22, 2026, Taiwan launches 5-day immediate combat readiness exercises to simulate attacks. Taiwan initiated a 5-day series of realistic military exercises utilizing actual troops and equipment on designated terrain in real time. The drills focused on testing the speed and coordination of defensive units transitioning from peacetime status to wartime deployment in response to a surprise attack. Market impact, neutral. June 22, 2026, China breaks trade truce, imposing sanctions on American defense and robotics corporations. Beijing retaliated against the U.S. Pentagon's decision to blacklist Chinese tech firms by imposing sanctions on dozens of American defense, robotics, and rare earth corporations. The sanctions ban the export of dual-use products to these companies, ending a brief period of trade stability between the two economies. Market impact, bearish. June 22, 2026, China's Wang Yi coordinates joint positions at BRICS Security Advisors meeting in India. Foreign Affairs Chief Wang Yi attended the 16th BRICS National Security Advisors meeting in India, focusing on regional stability and political preparations for the upcoming summit. The engagement highlighted China's strategic effort to strengthen ties with emerging market economies and coordinate security policy. Market impact, neutral. June 21, 2026, China supports U.S.-Iran de-escalation framework and Strait of Hormuz security. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed public support for the mediated U.S.-Iran talks and the Memorandum of Understanding signed in Islamabad. Beijing welcomed the diplomatic progress as essential for ensuring the free flow of energy and maritime security in the Strait of Hormuz. Market impact, bullish. June 26, 2026, EU Transport, Telecommunications, and Energy Council meets in Luxembourg to coordinate on Strait of Hormuz energy security. EU energy ministers gathered in Luxembourg to negotiate the European Grids Package, aiming to streamline cross-border renewable permitting and electrification. The Council also held critical discussions on coordinating energy sector responses to ongoing instability and shipping disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. Market impact, neutral. June 25, 2026, Council of the EU formally extends sectoral economic sanctions against Russia for 12 months. The Council of the EU formally extended its sectoral economic sanctions against Russia for 12 months until July 31, 2027. This represents a significant shift from the previous 6-month renewal format, designed to provide greater predictability and prevent sanctions from becoming leverage points during regular reviews. Market impact, bearish. June 25, 2026, Ukraine Recovery Conference, URC 2026, convenes in Gdansk to mobilize international aid. The annual Ukraine Recovery Conference opened in Poland, co-hosted by Poland and Ukraine, to coordinate international support for critical energy and transport infrastructure. For the first time, a dedicated security and defense dimension was introduced to address the link between security and long-term economic rebuilding. Market impact, neutral. June 25, 2026, French President Macron and Italian Prime Minister Meloni hold emergency bilateral talks in Antibes. French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni met in Antibes, France, for urgent discussions regarding migration reform, border controls, and European defense autonomy. The meeting highlighted shared security priorities and efforts to build a more united EU framework on migration. Market impact, neutral. June 25, 2026, proposed 21st EU sanctions package against Russia targets shadow fleet and LNG transits. Negotiations continued among member states regarding the European Commission's proposed 21st sanctions package against Russia. The proposal includes adding 30 vessels supporting the Russian shadow fleet, pausing the oil price cap adjustments until 2027 to stabilize markets, and banning transaction processing for 31 additional Russian financial institutions. Market impact, bearish. June 24, 2026, member states reach partial compromise on Horizon Europe 2028 to 2034 funding priorities. EU member states reached a partial agreement on the Horizon Europe research funding program. The compromises focus on aligning future scientific and industrial innovations with the bloc's long-term strategic sovereignty and global economic competitiveness goals. Market impact, neutral. June 24, 2026, European Union calls for €650 million capital injection into Ukraine Energy Support Fund. European Union officials issued a joint appeal to international donors to secure €650 million for the Ukraine Energy Support Fund. The funding is intended to reconstruct destroyed energy infrastructure and stabilize the grid ahead of the 2026/2027 winter season. Market impact, neutral. June 23, 2026, European Parliament committees adopt negotiating position on new military mobility rules. A joint session of EP committees approved the negotiating position for a regulation to establish a military Schengen. The legislation aims to streamline customs and border clearance for military forces, implementing a digital permitting system by 2027. Market impact, neutral. June 22, 2026, European Democracy Shield Forum convenes in Brussels to address hybrid information threats. The European Commission launched a series of forums under the European Democracy Shield initiative. The sessions focused on utilizing digital tools to protect democratic processes and countering coordinated foreign information manipulation and hybrid warfare tactics. Market impact, neutral. June 26, 2026, UN Security Council holds open briefing on imminent RSF ground offensive in El Obeid, Sudan. The UN Security Council scheduled an open briefing to address the escalating threat of an offensive by the Rapid Support Forces on El Obeid, North Kordofan. Bipartisan warnings highlight an imminent risk to over 500,000 civilians and key humanitarian routes if military operations continue to intensify. Market impact, neutral. June 25, 2026, Ebola cases in Democratic Republic of the Congo surpass 1,100 amid rapid transmission. The DRC Ministry of Health reported that confirmed Ebola cases rose to 1,155 with 304 deaths, primarily in Ituri province. Containment is severely complicated by the lack of a licensed vaccine for the Bundibugyo Ebola virus strain and ongoing armed conflicts in the region. Market impact, neutral. June 24, 2026, devastating doublet earthquake in north-central Venezuela prompts national state of emergency. A powerful doublet earthquake event, magnitudes 7.2 and 7.5, struck north-central Venezuela, resulting in at least 188 deaths, thousands of injuries, and widespread infrastructure destruction. Acting President Delcy Rodriguez declared a national state of emergency, while the international community began coordinating search and rescue operations. Market impact, bearish. June 24, 2026, Independent Abelardo de la Espriella wins Colombian presidential runoff. Independent candidate Abelardo de la Espriella secured victory in Colombia's runoff election with 49.66% of the vote, defeating historic PACT candidate Iván Cepeda, who conceded the election on June 24. Incumbent President Gustavo Petro acknowledged the results, resolving concerns over potential post-election political instability. Market impact, bullish. June 24, 2026, Ukrainian long-range strikes hit key Russian gas plant and satellite communication centers. Ukrainian forces executed a series of overnight long-range drone and missile strikes targeting a major Russian natural gas processing plant and 2 satellite communications hubs. In occupied Crimea, strikes on a primary electrical substation caused extensive power outages across multiple cities, including Sevastopol and Sakai. Market impact, neutral. June 24, 2026, Russia redeploys air defense systems from regions to safeguard Moscow and Kerch Bridge. In response to the intensifying aerial campaign conducted by Ukrainian forces, Russian military leadership has begun transferring advanced air defense systems from various regions. The redeployment aims to secure high-value infrastructure assets, including the capital city of Moscow and the strategically vital Kerch Bridge. Market impact, neutral. June 23, 2026, UN envoy engages RSF leadership to negotiate humanitarian corridor protection around El Obeid. Reports confirmed that Pekka Haavisto, the UN Secretary-General's personal envoy for Sudan, engaged in direct negotiations with RSF leader Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo. The talks aimed to secure assurances that civilians would not be targeted and that vital humanitarian corridors in North Kordofan would remain protected. Market impact, neutral. June 22, 2026, Russian signal repeaters along Belarusian-Ukrainian border cease operations following Kyiv's ultimatum. Following an ultimatum issued by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Russian-installed signal repeaters along the Belarusian border went offline. These repeaters had previously been used by Russian forces to guide attack drones into western Ukrainian territory, highlighting geopolitical friction between Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. Market impact, neutral. June 21, 2026, Ethiopia's National Election Board officially announces Prosperity Party landslide victory. The National Election Board of Ethiopia declared that the ruling Prosperity Party, led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, won a landslide victory in the general election, securing 438 of the 501 contested seats. The election was completed despite significant security issues, with voting excluded from the conflict-torn Tigray region and parts of Oromia and Amhara. Market impact, neutral.